Too many of us use food as an emotional crutch, overeating when we're distressed, anxious, or unhappy. Today on Fat Doctor, single parent Chris Webber. At 33 stone, he's super morbidly obese and a self-confessed emotional eater.
I was a secret eater. I don't want to die young. I have a young family still. I've got a brand new grandson.
And Rachel Edwards, who comfort ate herself to a massive 25 stone before she had obesity surgery.
What I did to myself is just unforgivable.
Expect graphic scenes of gastric surgery on Fat Doctor. This is the Costa Brava in Spain. It's where Chris Webber spends most of his time. He lives here with daughter Kylie, grandson Hayden, and son Jez. He also has a daughter in Australia and a son back in England. Chris is 50 years old, 6 foot tall, and super morbidly obese.
So nice.
If he carries on like this, his future is bleak.
My current weight is just over 30 stone. It just worries me that if I don't do something now, it'll be too late. And for my children's sake, and for my sake, now's the time to deal with it.
Chris lives in Santa Susana and works as a singer in local clubs.
Thank you.
I always appear to be very confident outwardly, but inwardly, it's something. I think it's something which I hide very well. I suppose you could say you put on a front, you put on a brave face. I sing and I get up on stage in front of people, and I've done that for a long, long time now. Although I know that when we arrive and we're setting up all the gear, you know, people are saying, "Oh, look, who's the fat man turned up?" You know, and there's always jokes and looks. But to see the people's faces at the end of the night, I love it very much.
Chris's biggest fans, Ruby and Colin, have watched his weight pile on.
Well, we first met Chris about 4 years ago when he came to the Panama singing, and we enjoyed coming out ever since, following him wherever he's singing.
Well, he's such a nice chap as well, isn't he? You know, you did buy him some shirts for Christmas when we came out.
Last year, yeah.
But we bought the XXXL.
4Xs.
4XL. And they didn't fit him.
No. They were too small. It was the Christmas parties here,
yeah.
And who ate all the pies?
When I think back about what I used to eat, it would be nothing for me to if I had fish and chips for dinner, I'd have 2 pieces of fish, you know, and 6 slices of bread and butter, you know, this sort of thing. And it's been known in the past where, because I was feeling so down or so low, I'd go into a cafe and I'd have breakfast in the cafe, sit in the cafe all morning reading newspapers and drinking tea piled up with sugar, and then I'd stay there for lunch as well, and I'd have dinner at lunch, then come home, have dinner at home, and even late at night sometimes would have a takeaway. That was, to me, that was normal behaviour for a long, long time, and that is not normal behaviour. That is not what normal people do.
From when I was about 11 or 12, I realised that he was eating a lot and he just was always hungry. I mean, I seen him, sometimes he went out to a restaurant and he'd have 2 hamburgers and chips, and it was difficult for me to sit there and let him eat it. But I couldn't tell him not to, because he'd only do it behind my back, and anyway.
To eat and to eat more, and that in turn made me feel good, because food makes you feel good.
But now, Chris knows it's time for drastic action. Chris is leaving his family, friends, and his life as a singer in Spain behind to begin his weight loss journey. He's on his way back to England for a gastric bypass operation. Surgery he thinks will change his life.
I've decided to have this operation because I want to change my whole way of life. I want a better quality of life, and the way that I can achieve that after all the diets I've tried and all of the different systems and consultations with dietitians and everything, I'm left with really the only option is to have a gastric bypass, and hopefully with that operation I will achieve the weight loss that I'm looking for, which is quite a lot. This operation is going to enable me to do so many things that I've never done before. I've never actually been on a fairground ride or a theme park ride, so that one of the things which people take for granted is something that I'm really looking forward to doing.
Chris was left with no alternative to surgery after he tried and failed with numerous diets.
I am one of the world's best dieters. I must have tried all of them over the years. It's just a crazy circle that you go into. You start dieting, it doesn't work, so you stop, you start eating, then you go onto a different diet because you think that might work.
But Chris's emotional addiction to food meant his obesity spiraled out of control. Anyone with a body mass index over 30 is medically obese. Chris has a BMI of 55. In desperation, Chris turned to this man. Shaw Summers is one of Britain's leading obesity surgeons. He knows better than anyone how people like Chris become emotionally dependent on food.
There are many triggers for an individual to become obese. It's either down to the need for food as a comfort, either life's become stressful, be that socially, work life, or both, or there is a genuine problem with handling food, misunderstanding what it's doing to them, or just maleducation. They don't understand what it is their body needs in order to live a healthy life. And some patients actually have all three of those going on, and to try and unravel that is really almost impossible by talking alone. And sometimes that's where surgery comes in. It breaks that inability to get out of the vicious cycle of not knowing how or what to eat, eating the wrong things and eating too much, but relying on food as a comfort to get over the stresses of an otherwise difficult life.
Chris's emotional eating started in the late 1990s with a family tragedy. He and his then wife had a daughter who died at birth. Shannon is buried in this cemetery, and Chris comes here as often as he can when he's back in England.
Although I said earlier that I've always been big, I think probably one of the triggers for me was the loss of our daughter. Here we are in the cemetery at St Julian's Church, and this is where my daughter's buried. And Shannon has a really, really big part of my life still, and I think because I was so sad and upset at the time of Shannon's death, that probably is what impacted on me and maybe triggered me off to seeking comfort elsewhere, and I found my comfort in food.
You know, it destroyed him, and he was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. As the years went on, I think he gradually got more unhappy, and it just spiraled. Even to this day, I find it very difficult to contemplate putting a headstone on the grave, because I think it just gives me that permanence. Maybe in the future there's a possibility that I would have something done, but I'm not ready for that even now. So maybe when my new life starts, that may be something that I'll consider doing.
Chris's case is really interesting, but he's fallen into this vicious cycle of overeating because of his emotional state. He's had a really troubled time over the last few years with family issues, and that's just led him to comfort eat, and he just can't break out of that cycle. So for him, this operation is vital to give him his life back.
Chris has been staying at a friend's house in Sussex while he waits for his operation. His surgery is now just 24 hours away, but for the last fortnight, he's been put on a milk-only diet. This will shrink the size of his liver, which should make it easier for Shaw Summers to access Chris's stomach during the operation.
The final day of my milk diet. 2 weeks of drinking semi-skimmed milk, 2 litres a day, plus some other liquids. And this is my last day today.
I've been drinking this for 2 weeks and my operation is tomorrow. So, cheers.
Whether the diet has worked will only be known when Shaw gets inside Chris's abdomen tomorrow morning. Then his days as an emotional eater will be over forever. Like Chris Webber, Rachel Edwards was an emotional eater, and she ate and she ate. By the time she was 23, she weighed a massive 25 stone.
I don't normally weigh myself because it's such a traumatic experience for me, and I just don't like to put pressure on myself. And yeah, it was a huge shock when I found out actually how much I weighed. I didn't think that I weighed that much.
But that was 5 years ago. This is Rachel today after a gastric bypass operation. Married and the mother of 3 young children. It's been the most extraordinary transformation. But Rachel can remember quite clearly what drove her to an addiction to food.
I was bullied all the way through school, so I was just comfort eating to try and just forget everything and just move on as best I could, and I just took my comfort in food. It made me felt good at the time, but bloody awful afterwards. Very rarely would I eat fruit or veg. Crisps, I think, were the thing, big thing. Crisps and chocolate and biscuits. Yogurts, just anything I could get my hands on, really. I was emotionally eating. I was eating to make myself feel happy. I was eating because I was so depressed, I was so down, and on the other hand, I kept thinking to myself, why am I eating so much? Why am I eating so much? Yeah, I was definitely very, very, very unhappy, and I took my comfort in food because I couldn't do it any other way.
I think people grossly underestimate the psychological impact of being overweight, the sense of social isolation, despair, the sense of being an item of ridicule from the rest of the population is absolutely soul-destroying. And many of my patients have had years of this kind of low-grade social abuse. They feel so helpless at being able to lose weight by themselves because of the ridicule. They end up almost self-fulfilling that prophecy and failing. And it's only surgery that will lift the vast majority of those failed patients out of their trap.
At the time, Rachel's parents could barely understand how their daughter came to this.
Rachel as a baby was like a Dresden china doll. She was very tiny, very delicate. We used to look at other babies and say, oh, isn't that gross? That's horrible, so fat. And then by the time she was 5, she was showing signs of being really chubby.
We didn't really know what to do.
I don't think my mum and dad realised just how bad it was. And there was just, I think they felt very helpless. They couldn't do anything.
By her early 20s, Rachel's eating was out of control. She weighed 25 stone with a BMI over 60. Surgery seemed the only way out. Rachel barely recognises the woman who went to see Shaw Summers 4 years ago. But Shaw had a warning.
By the time you're 33, your chances of something happening to cause you to not be here are probably higher than the risks of us doing surgery and you successfully losing weight. And if you were to say, well, do you want to stay like this?
No, no.
There you go. From your point of view, Rachel, we've got to do something to help you now. If you can't do it yourself, then the next thing to consider is some kind of intervention. How do you feel about going ahead with surgery?
Scared, apprehensive, but I need to do something.
3 months later, Rachel finally got the operation she'd been longing for.
I very much believe in fate. I think things happen for a reason. And obviously, it was right for me to have the operation.
She has just such the deepest, toughest abdominal wall.
I knew deep down that it was the thing for me to do, for me to move forward, for me to carry on.
She's actually very chunkily built. It's not just fat, she's actually quite a thick-set girl.
For going through that, it is a hard decision to make. Really, really hard. But I'm so proud of myself that I've done it. And I'm on the other side.
It just makes it very difficult to get any sort of access without splitting her right open, and that's clearly something we don't want to do.
I just so wanted to be able to enjoy myself, feel good about myself, And that operation, Mr. Summers and the nurses in Chichester Hospital just gave me that, and I will never ever forget that.
It's the morning of Chris's operation. He's on his way to St Richard's Hospital in Chichester. He knows it's major surgery, and not without its risks.
I'm feeling quite nervous and anxious because there's always a risk involved, which has been explained to me in detail. And you hear all the time now in the press and on the television and every opportunity, oh, weight loss surgery is an easy fix. It's an easy way out. It's not an easy way out at all. It's a very dangerous operation. And you can't help but be anxious because I'm here, you know, I look after my children, and if I'm not here at the end of the day, there's nobody to do that. So, although I'm anxious and nervous, it's something I've been looking forward to for a long time, and now the time's arrived.
Chris gets one last visit from surgeon Shaw Summers.
Morning, Christopher.
He needs to get Chris's written consent for the operation he's about to have.
Right. Well, today's your day. Spent a long time considering this and preparing. Do you feel ready?
I'm definitely ready now.
I'd like to go through the consent form with you, as is my duty.
Chris may be ready. He knows surgery is the only way he can be sure of a longer life with his children and grandchild back in Spain. But he's anxious about the operation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Feeling a bit nervous, really. A bit apprehensive, but looking forward to it now. Hopefully in a few hours it'll be over.
Just through these doors.
It's my birthday today. My birthday was actually 2 days ago. And so today's going to be my new birthday. The start of a completely new way of life.
Would you like to hop up this week?
Right? And then just put there.
Chris has a BMI of 55, which doesn't put him into the biggest or highest risk group, but because Chris is very tall, the body mass index doesn't always give the full picture of how much harm his weight is doing him. And Chris is fairly typical of a middle-aged person with excessive weight, and that is his body systems can cope with that weight for the moment, but over the next decade some of his systems will start to fail and everything starts to unravel. So for Chris this is a preventative operation to really get him back to where he needs to be so that he can keep doing what he has to do.
Take some nice deep breaths for me. So if you can breathe into the bottom of your lungs. We of course will look after you. We'll look after you. We'll see you later.
I'm here, sweetie.
He's just there. We're all here.
Thank you ever so much, everybody.
That's all right.
Chris, now slowly drift you off the seat over the next 30 seconds, 40 seconds. See, just find yourself starting to feel a bit more drowsy and relaxed. We'll go very slowly. That's lovely. Just gently does it. Just drifting off to sleep. We'll see you again in a couple of hours' time.
Patient's name?
Christopher Webber.
Plan procedure.
Laparoscopic gastric bypass.
Any concerns you'd like to be aware of?
Nope. He's big, but I expect that.
Okay, lovely.
Once the camera is inside Chris's abdominal cavity, Shaw can see if Chris's milk diet has been successful.
Pretty good view of everything, and we'll see how good Christopher's been with his diet, because we look at his liver and yay! He's been a good boy. He's been a good boy. It makes me happy. Okay, Sophia, if you would like to put in a 5 port there, please.
Part of Shaw's job is to train up new obesity surgeons to meet the growing demand for gastric bypass operations, and today he has a junior surgeon assisting him.
One of the most important parts of my job is actually teaching and training, and having a clinical fellow like Sophia at the senior end of her training to come and learn the techniques of looking after people like Christopher, I think is very important. I can't let my professional knowledge and experience end when I stop operating, so I've got to hand it on. It's also very pleasant to teach and watch someone gain the skills and improve. Thank you.
The first stage of Chris's surgery is to bypass about 1 metre of his small intestine. This will have a dramatic and lasting impact on his appetite in the future.
Right, so that's 1 metre down the small bowel. You would think that the more intestine that you bypass, the less calories will be absorbed for a given amount of food. And in the first 3 to 6 months after surgery, I think that's true. There is an element of malabsorption, and that helps drive the rapid weight loss that we see immediately after this surgery. But the intestine is very, very adaptable, and after about 6 months, I think the absorption starts to return to normal. However, what does change for good is the hormone response of the intestine to food being put in at a different place. And that's what a bypass achieves. Food goes into the intestine in the wrong place. And that means that the hormones that normally regulate your appetite and the way the body responds to food changes. And those changes improve diabetes, initiate what we call satiety, so the patient doesn't feel hungry anymore, and it puts them off very sweet or very strong foods, which is a good thing.
Operating on someone as big as Chris, Shaw is working at the very limit of his surgical instruments.
And he's a big fella. He's not just overweight, he's actually tall, broad, and so my normal instruments, which are almost 18 inches long, are only just long enough for me to get in and do what they need to do. But I've met this problem before, I'm sure we'll get by it.
Once the intestine has been bypassed, the second stage of the operation is to drastically reduce the size of Chris's stomach.
Just got to decide how small I make this now. Normally, when it's full of food, it's about the size of a honeydew melon, and I'm going to leave Chris with a stomach the size of about an egg. And I've just got to picture in my mind's eye how big that's going to be. I'm just tunnelling behind the stomach now. Okay, so what we have now is a small stomach pouch there, about the size of an egg, and then the rest of the stomach, this pink organ, all the way down there. So you can see we've reduced his capacity quite significantly now. And just to give you a comparison, that's the width of the stomach pouch, according to my graspers. And if I take the graspers out, you can see that it's not very big at all. Okay.
Shaw is now ready for the final stage of Chris's operation.
Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to attach the small stomach pouch to the bypass of the intestine so that the full effects of the surgery will come into play. So what I need to do is make a little hole in the pouch. Okay. And then a little hole in the bypass loop that I've made. Right. Now this joint I've got to judge to be exactly the right size for Christopher. Not too big, not too small. So he's got to be able to eat something, but not too much. Okay. Okay, lift up the camera. That's it, show me the middle. Is that right? No two people are identical in size, and every operation has subtle differences from the next. And that's really what makes my job both interesting and challenging. It's not like bolting a new clutch into a car, that when you've done it, it's a new clutch, and it's absolutely and utterly reliable and reproducible what you've done. Surgery is not like that. And despite the fact that, yes, I've done a bypass on Christopher, the results of what it will do for him are down partly to my interpretation of how that bypass should be for Christopher, but also on how he behaves. And that is coloured by his personality and his perceptions of what he needs in order to help him lose weight. It also means I'm not just a car mechanic. We know from this kind of surgery, been performed for ulcers and cancer in the past, where you'd actually take the stomach out rather than just bypass it, that you can live perfectly well with this kind of setup. As long as you take a vitamin tablet every day and you're careful with your diet, it's compatible with a long and happy life. Certainly happier and healthier than being big. What we do next is we put a little tube through this joint that I'm sewing up so that I know how wide it is, so that I can just gauge that food will go down it as long as Chris chews it well. And down you go. Let me just lift it up a bit. Okay, down you go again. He doesn't want to behave, does it? Come on then. Okay, there you go. Lovely. Okay, so that gives me something to stitch around that is going to be exactly the right diameter. But it means that Chris will have to chew his food well so that it's fairly mushy by the time he swallows it. If he were to take a bite of sausage roll and swallow it whole, I'm afraid it will get stuck at this little narrowing and he'll have to burp it up again. And that's partly the way the operation works in its early days. It teaches people to slow down their eating and to chew things properly. It also teaches them to enjoy their food more, and many people who have this surgery say they actually do take their time over their meals and enjoy them very much more than they used to when eating was just a hurry. There's no room for dropping one.
Finally, Shaw needs to test whether all the stitches and staples have formed proper seals.
So what I've done is I've joined the two bits together, and I'm now filling the top of Christopher's tummy with water. And I'm now going to ask my colleague to blow down the tube, not literally. Right. Yep, go. There we go. Lovely. So there's plenty of air in there. Keep going all the way. So we put it under a bit of pressure, and if there's any holes, any gaps, you get little bubbles coming out, and there's none, so that's fine. I'm quite happy that that joint is safe for Christopher to drink when he gets back to the ward. Good, okay, I'm just going to take all the water out. That's the liver retractor out. On to you. Thank you, Sophia.
Okay, and then somewhere we've got to do relaxants, reversal. Chris, big breath in for me.
Take some nice deep breaths, Chris. Take a break. It's waking up now. Big deep breath for me.
After all of his pre-surgery anxiety, Chris wakes up after his 2.5-hour operation.
Chris, hello there. Welcome back. Operation's all finished. Just take a second. Nice big breaths in and out.
He is now wheeled off to the recovery unit. His eating habits will never be the same.
Chris, good. Okay. Just head into recovery.
While Chris Webber recovers from his operation, Rachel can now look back on how surgery so completely changed her life.
That's Mummy. That's Mummy. Watching myself now, I just think, oh my God, how I was, how I felt, where I was generally at that point. My mum and dad were despairing at the time, but then I think looking back on that now, it just reflects what frame of mind I was in. It was just awful, really. Just looking to see like how tight clothes were on me, and I think I've still got that T-shirt somewhere. And that was a size 34, which is the largest size you can get in certain shops that I was shopping in. So finding clothes to fit me was getting increasingly difficult. These are the clothes that I wore the day that I went into hospital to have my operation. I just can't believe how ridiculously huge they are. And I can't believe that these were tight on me the day that I went in. I now try and wear clothes that are tight on my legs to try and disguise the loose skin and kind of hold everything in. And tops that are probably on the tight side now. I just feel like I should have a big hoop and some braces, because these are just ridiculously huge. I can't believe that these were tight on me. Look, Max! Mummy looks like a clown. Yes! Okay, this is the top that I wore the day that I went in, and this was actually tight on me. I haven't had these on in years and years and years. and this was like skin tight. It was like that on me, and yeah, to just see it hanging off me is very good. But this is just crazy. I just couldn't. Would never like to be that size again. This is just completely crazy. I feel very good about my body. The only thing that I don't like is all the loose skin that I have, and it's just all over the place. And I try, as I said, I try and wear clothes that are tight to disguise my shape now, because it's a ridiculous shape. I have loose skin, where lots of people don't have loose skin. I have loose skin here on my thighs, here on my arms, and there's about 6 inches on each arm here, and I have loose skin here. I can never get a bra to fit properly because I get sores around here, and I have a roll just here that just makes it look really bizarre, and also this huge roll here, and I get sores all the way underneath, and that when it's really bad, it's very painful. It oozes, it bleeds, and to be honest, it's absolutely disgusting, but it stinks as well. The doctors just say keep it dry, keep it clean, but when you're so big and you have lots of excess skin, you can't help but sweat. I mean, worst days when it's really, really bad, I find it really difficult to even get down on the floor and play with my children because I'm just that sore. I try and not let my loose skin or anything affect me because I've come such a long way. Having a choice of being that fat or having the operation and looking like this and having all the loose skin, I'd much rather have all the loose skin because I've now got a far better quality of life than I ever did. And I have 3 wonderful children to play with and keep my mind occupied. Hey, Mummy's little boy, aren't you? Hey.
Four months after his operation, Chris is fit and well, and back in Spain. He's already lost almost 9 stone, and life seems good.
I spend as much time as I can out here, but the family, the youngsters are all here all the time. They live here all the time. The weather's beautiful, and I'm looking forward to relaxing, spending a bit of time with the family.
Chris's children have helped him through the bad times. Now that his own life has taken a turn for the better, he's looking forward to playing a bigger part in theirs.
I think I lost my way. Well, I did. I lost my way, and I sought comfort, really, in eating. It's strange. It's very strange to explain it, really. I'm really pleased that the family, you know, I've got my family around me. Not only being able to support me and help me, but I've also been in a position now where I can now help them more and support them more in their lives.
And with Kylie expecting his 2nd grandchild, that support is needed more than ever. Chris's immediate priority is to get used to having a stomach the size of an egg and a completely new diet to go with it.
It's not easy. Anyone that tells you it's easy, it's not. And it's trial and error. That's the only way I can describe it, really. At one moment, you know, you think you can eat salad, and then the following day you can't. Prior to going on this crusade, I think I'm going to call it, not a journey, everyone calls it a journey, this is like a crusade I think I'm on. And I used to eat a lot of food. I think at my heaviest I was 33.4 stone, I think it was. And I'm now down to 20. It doesn't just disappear, you have to work at it. You have to work at the input that you put into your body, and you also have to work at your output, your exercise, and your exercise regime, which I've never been used to before either.
A key member of Shaw Summer's obesity team is dietitian Denise Thomas. She knows how difficult it is for patients to adjust to their new eating regime.
Weight regain is possible, so this isn't a guaranteed ticket to thinness for the rest of your days. And good practices that have been learned and adhered to in that first year will carry you through for a lifetime of significant weight loss maintenance, which is something that I'm sure all patients who are seeking surgery really want to have.
This is now part of Chris's daily regime, a new routine that has changed his life.
I'm a lot more mobile than I used to be, you know, whereas before, if I walked any sort of distance at all, I'd be in pain. My hips, my knees, I'd be in pain. Now, not at all. I can walk now, walk and walk. I swim every day. I spend at least a couple of hours in the swimming pool every day, just sort of keeping moving. I think the key is to keep moving after this operation. If you sit around watching the TV, you know, you're going to be one of those people that are going to be saying, I'm not losing any weight. You know, I'm in a lovely environment here, and I can swim every day, and I feel motivated to do it all, to do everything really, just because I want to see the change in myself, you know, and I want to do it for the children. I was always tired, but I'm not tired anymore, whereas I'd wake up tired, you know, and that now enables me to take the family out, and we can go out as a family without me having to worry about, you know, if I drive an hour down the road, I'm going to have to stop for a sleep. You know, that doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't happen anymore. And I think they're looking forward to me being able to do things with them as well. And that's what I'm looking forward to. This is a new life.
And Rachel has a new life too.
I've got married, I've had 3 children, learnt to drive, I've moved out of mum and dad's house into my own flat. Everything has just changed. There is not one thing that has stayed the same. If I hadn't had the operation, I think I would have spiralled and I would have had serious health complications, and I possibly even may not be here. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to have my children. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. That was just what I did to myself. It's just unforgivable.
What do you do outside? It's raining over there, blowing.
So much has changed. I just can't get over. I'd never go back to how I was. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Life is just so much better, and it's actually worth living now. Whereas before I just didn't think that at all.
Back in Spain, days out with his children used to be rare before Chris's operation. So this is a big day for them all. A family excursion to a theme park.
When my dad woke me up this morning and said we're going to a theme park, I was shocked, because I didn't imagine that I'd ever be going to a theme park with my dad and going on a ride with him. And since he had his operation, my life's changed as much as he has. Because now I can do things with him and go places with him, and hopefully life's going to get a lot better from now on.
I can't believe that I've actually come to a theme park. For the first time in my life, I'm prepared to go on a ride, or I'll be allowed to go on a ride for the first time in my life, so it's unbelievable, really. If I'm feeling brave a bit later on, I'd like to go on the big ride, Dragon Car. How many loops? 8 loops, the largest roller coaster in Europe, apparently.
It's crazy. I wouldn't say he's a different man, but his attitude now is so different. He's got a boost of energy, and he's going wild.
I don't know whether to have the salmon salad or the Caesar salad.
Before the ride, there's time for lunch. But as the rest of the family tuck into their burgers, Chris is happy to choose a salad.
Yeah, Jez, that's what you call a meal. Because I can eat that now. I'm feeling quite peckish at the moment, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish most of this. If I manage to eat this, that'll be everything that I eat for the day. I won't eat anything else today. Might have a couple of bananas later, but that's quite a lot for me, and so. But it looks quite tasty. It's a fair old burger you've got there. Do you want to swap that burger for my salad? No. No chance. This time last year, I'd have wanted 2 of them burgers with chips and beans.
I've never, ever been out, really, with my dad. He always used to say, oh, you go out down the park, and, we'd see other dads there playing with the children in the park, and I never really understood until I got a little bit older why he didn't want to do it. It wasn't because he didn't want to do it. It was because he was ashamed of how he was. He was embarrassed. So now my dad wants to go to the theme parks. Now it's crazy.
Now the moment of truth, and one of Europe's biggest roller coasters.
Come on, let's get there.
There's the next one going up.
Let's watch this one and see what happens here. So it don't go very fast, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Does it? Does it speed up?
That's going fast.
We've got to do it. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. There comes a time where you've got to do it. I'm feeling very nervous, loads of people here, and we come right to the front of the queue. We're just going to go and do it now. We're not going to hang about, we're going to go for it. See you on the other side. It's terrible. I don't know how I feel. I feel lightheaded. I think I need a drink as well. That was, well, I don't know what to say. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. Do I want to go on again? Nah.
If Dad hadn't have had the operation when he did, he would never have seen his grandchildren be born. He would have gone more into self-destruction. The addiction to food that he had would have took over, and he wouldn't have been here. He would have died.
If I hadn't have been able to have this operation, I'm quite sure that eventually I'd have just retired to my bed, and that's where I'd have stayed, really. And I could see myself dying. There's no doubt about that. And there would have been nothing I could do about it. Absolutely nothing.
You know, every girl's dream is for their father to walk them up the aisle, and, you know, when that day comes for me, I wanted my dad here for my wedding. And I knew if it didn't happen now, it would never have happened. And so now he's here, and I know he's not going anywhere now because he's working now so hard for the future. And that's what we do now. We think about the future, and we don't think too much about the past.